Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. In this video, I'm going to talk about what it's like to use Enochian magic, drawing on my own experiences using this system of magic. So I've already done 2 videos introducing Enochian magic, giving some of the background of how it arose historically, the different elements of the system, and that can all be very intimidating. You know, there's a lot of really complicated tables full of jumbled letters that seem to make no sense. It's like you're looking at an alien computer or an alien microchip of some kind when you look at the Enochian tools, and that can scare a lot of people off. And it can be quite tedious, the thought of trawling through these tables trying to make sense of it all. And so what I wanted to do is highlight the really amazing thing about Enochian magic, which is the experiences that you can obtain by using it, which really is the majority of Enochian magic. You only really use the tables and things to derive the names that you're going to use, and more often than not there's somebody who's already put in the work of finding the patterns that lay out how to find this or that type of angelic name, and you can find that material pretty easily online somewhere. But then once you've used the tables to get the names and everything, and you know where you are in the system, what part of the system you're trying to use for a particular goal, then from then on it's all experiential, and that is when things really start to get interesting. Using Enochian magic is like opening up a doorway into another dimension, and having a look around. And quite often you find your consciousness changed in some way as a result of the experiences that you can have as a result of Enochian magic. So I first discovered Enochian magic when I was 17, when I was starting to experiment with other forms of magic. And so because I was experimenting with a lot of different things, I was what you would call an occult dabbler. I had the opportunity to compare the experience working with Enochian magic and the Enochian angels versus other kinds of spirits. The first thing that really demarcates Enochian magic from other forms of magic is that it's not as practical. Although there are certain spirits in the Great Table and so forth, and even the Heptarchia, which can perform tasks that are like practical magic, which is, you know, using magic to manifest things in the world. Really the thing that makes Enochian unique is the way that it allows one to tap into higher energies from the angelic realms. And when you're tapping into that kind of energy, the outcome is very different, and the goals that you need to set in what you are going to achieve by dealing with that kind of energy have to be very different as well. So while other forms of magic, using a grimoire or something to manifest your desires in the physical world, are very much about that. They're about fulfilling your desires in the material world. With Enochian, with angelic magic, it's very different. It's all about the interior transformation. It's about how can you change your own consciousness so that the way that you perceive the world is different. And that is the source of the transformation. And that is the thing that liberates you, not by getting stuff, but by seeing things in a way that allows you to transcend the limited way that you saw things before. A way that is shrouded in the thinking that is of the world, that is shrouded in darkness and ignorance. But also, generally speaking, Enochian just allows you to change your consciousness in various different ways. Not always with a goal quite as lofty as spiritual enlightenment in mind. So for me, my first experimentations with Enochian magic, I was summoning angels from the Great Table of the Watchtowers. I think that they were some kind of a planetary angel, a governor or a senior or something. The first two Enochian angels that I ever summoned, I summoned using a Lon Milo Duquette introductory book, drawing quite heavily on Liber Harnock. But I summoned an angel of Mercury first, and that experiment was a success, and then I summoned an angel of Jupiter after that. And so when I summoned the angel of Mercury, using Duquette's book, drawing also very heavily on the Golden Dawn formula for Enochian magic, I noticed immediately that my consciousness shifted. Like my state of mind just completely flipped once I had invoked the angel and felt as though I had established a connection with it. And it was like I adopted a completely different personality, or that certain elements of my existing personality were enhanced, so that I became much more cerebral, much more quick-witted, and just generally more of a mercurial type of a consciousness. And then similarly, when I used the same process to summon a spirit of Jupiter, my consciousness changed again during the duration of the ritual, so that I suddenly became, well, very jovial. I was very happy, feeling very generous and very optimistic, very happy about going through life and very enthusiastic to be alive, which was unusual for me as a melancholic 17-year-old at the time. But it was a change that occurred because of the magic that I'd used. It's usually very hard, if not impossible, to make yourself feel a certain way or stop feeling a certain way. But it was certainly the case that when I used these Enochian rituals, I did find that I was able to instantly change the way that I was thinking at will. And so this is what the essence of Enochian magic really is. It's about changing consciousness. That is the most important thing that Enochian magic brings. Rather than being an evocation, which is summoning some kind of spiritual force to the external world and trying to affect a change in the external, you're invoking it. You're bringing an energy into yourself and integrating it into you and letting it change your mind, change your way of thinking, change your way of perceiving. And by doing that, you actually change the world, you change the universe in a more profound and deep way than you ever could just by rearranging the furniture, as it were, by changing the external world. So that was my early experiment stuffing around with Enochian magic. But the more serious form of Enochian magic revolves around the 48 calls that were given to Dee and Kelly, and in particular the calls of the 30 ethers. These calls, which are really just a form of invocation in their own right, allow you to open up, so to speak, different layers of the heavens, so that using your consciousness you can perceive what is within those different ethers, those different layers of the heavens. But although we're talking about the heavens, which you think of as being above, really the way that you enter those is by going within, because any higher plane of existence is really just perceiving existence at at a higher level of perception. And every layer of existence is just perception. And that's why you need to use the invocations of Enochian to change your inner state to enter an inner world which will allow you to perceive these higher heavenly realms of the ethers. That's not to say that the ethers don't have some objective reality beyond just your internal mind, but that is the gateway. That change of consciousness is the gateway. And it's the call that affects the change in consciousness. And so you read the call in Enochian, and then your consciousness shifts, your consciousness changes, and then you go inside, you go within and you explore that new consciousness. And that's how you explore the ethers. When you read something like one of the Enochian calls in the Enochian language, because it sounds like gobbledygook to the conscious mind, it switches the conscious mind off to read that, and then that allows you to get into a trance-like state where you're more susceptible to deeper, different states of consciousness, more spiritual states of consciousness. And that's part of it. But then also the call can then program your consciousness, so to speak, to be perceiving a certain level of reality. So that's what happens with the calls. And if you're using the Golden Dawn method, all of the elemental rituals and so forth achieve that result as well. So then you've done the call, and what is the next step if you're exploring the ethers or using one of the 48 calls to explore some part of the Enochian cosmos? Well, the next step, once you've read the call, is to engage in scrying. Now, scrying in this instance really means like looking into a crystal ball as a form of divination, as a form of vision work. Now, in my experience, scrying, it's not like you see in the movies or cartoons with the fortune teller where you've got the crystal ball with the smoke in it, and then you look into it and then you can see things happening. For some people, maybe they can scry that way. And you can get sort of vague images by looking into something like a black mirror in that way, or even like a crystal ball. But there's another method of scrying where basically the crystal or whatever you have becomes the object of your focus, for you to focus your awareness on a certain state of consciousness. But then once you're in that, it's all your own unconscious that does the work of generating the images. And I would argue that that's what happens when you're gazing into a black mirror, for example. It's just that you have a screen to project the images onto. But you can just as easily use the eyelids of your closed eyes as a scrying tool, in which case the crystal ball becomes a focus of your attention. And then when you close your eyes, the images will come much more readily because you've already done the work of getting yourself in that mindset. And this is the way that I have scryed when I've been doing Enochian rituals, working with the ethers or the 48 calls. So when I've done a scrying as part of an Enochian ritual, usually the images will come one of two ways. At first, what happens is I will just see visuals that vaguely look like a particular shape. And this is different to the kind of visuals or visualization that you get with the imagination. It's more like an after image. If you look at a bright light and then you close your eyes and you have the after image on your retina, it's more like that, the images that can appear. That's more what I look for, because I know that that's not just my mind telling me a story. But once I can grab hold of an image in the scrying like that, then it kind of develops in its own direction. It sort of starts off a train of thought, which does develop into more like images of the imagination. And the key then is that I let the imagery go where it wants to go without my mind coming in and trying to influence it. So this is really, if you've ever done a visualization meditation before, like, in Fight Club, where you go to your cave to find your spirit animal, that's like a guided meditation. There's somebody telling you what to visualize. And so you're constructing the world of the visualization using your conscious mind. Whereas in a scrying, what you want to do is, rather than your conscious mind being the one to initiate the vision, you make the mind passive and you let the vision come to you. You let the imagery come to you. And if you're somebody who receives messages from a deeper level in the form of verbal communications, you let the words come to you. Just like your own internal monologue, you kind of hear a voice. It's like that, but it's not your own voice. So it's all about creating a certain spiritual atmosphere and then shutting the mind up so your consciousness can become aware of what information is coming in. That's how scrying works. That's how you receive visions. And that's all that a vision is. People think a vision is like this montage flashing in front of your eyes, like a surround sound movie suddenly popping into existence from nowhere. But that's not what having a vision is like. Having a vision it's just imagination, but it's imagination, it's an imagining that you haven't initiated, but which comes from something else. Not all Enochian magic is vision work, but much of it is. And I would argue the most important and relevant aspects of the Enochian system are all based around vision work and scrying, coupled with the invocation of the angels. So what is one to expect during an Enochian ritual such as this? Well, in this instance, I can talk not only from my own experience, but the experience of others. Because I have worked with the 30 ethers and scryed the 30 ethers, and I know other people who also have scryed the 30 ethers from my OTO days. And the remarkable thing is this: different people who have scryed the same ether, let's say it's the 30th ether of Tex, different people who have all done an Enochian ritual independent of one another or in a group setting without telling each other what they saw, will scry the ether of Tex, and then they will see very similar things. So when you do an Enochian scrying, quite often what you see is very barren landscapes. That's one thing that seems to crop up time and again. Also being in very cosmic surrounds, very, very cosmic kind of environments, seems to be a reoccurring theme. And another thing that also seems to be, that seems to repeat itself across visions that different people have, is how the Enochian angels appear. So quite often, Enochian angels are not what you would stereotypically think of when you think of an angel, unless maybe you're talking about the angels from Neon Genesis Evangelion. That was my little nerdy joke. But in all seriousness, these things are weird. lots of shifting geometric shapes which seem to be alive. Quite often is how the Enochian angels appear. When they appear to me, usually they appear in a form which incorporates like a diamond or a triangle or a circle or a semicircle hemisphere, like a floating shape as a head with like a garment around it, like a robe around it, like a flowing fabric all around it. I also see a lot of wings that aren't attached to any body. They might be attached to a shape, which may or may not have features like a set of eyes or something like that. Very abstract, very strange looking entities. I would go so far as to say almost alien looking compared to the stereotypical sort of medieval depictions of an angel. Although Ezekiel's angels, what commonly gets referred to these days as the biblically accurate angel, would probably be in pretty good company with the Enochian angels. Very, very odd. Lots of wings, lots of shapes flying around. Nothing resembling anything of this world. But people see similar things, and the geometric shapes seem to be a common denominator. Now, all of that is very interesting because it suggests that there is some kind of objective reality to the world of the ethers, to the Enochian universe, and some objective reality to the Enochian angels. So perhaps some level of the collective unconscious is being tapped into here. Perhaps it's something even more profound. Who knows? But it's definitely very spooky when you scry a particular ether and then you compare notes with someone and they see the same thing that you see. The castle with a purple sky or something like that. Not something obvious either. It suggests some kind of objectivity to the Enochian universe. And that's all very cool, but the more important thing about Enochian magic is what the experience brings to your life. So when you explore the Enochian ethers, even when you use the 18 calls for the parts of the Enochian universe before the ethers, you can receive some real gems of wisdom from the angels if you're open to receiving information that might be very different to what you believe. I've certainly been very fortunate to have received many communications during my Enochian workings, things which took a long time to sink in. Some things which I resisted at first, but which ultimately I came to believe, and lessons that have made me a better person. So if you want an inner transformation, if you want a transformation in your consciousness, Enochian magic can be a very good tool in doing that. And in fact, that is what I would recommend. If you're going to use Enochian magic, that's what you should use it for. So that is a little bit of a background on what it's like to use Enochian magic, what to expect having an experience during an Enochian ritual. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave a like if you did and subscribe to support my work if you haven't already. And I will be doing more videos in this Enochian series in the future. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.